Hey guys, welcome back to the second part of the Blender for Production tutorial. For this, we are still on the render layer, render passes, and skin collection and how they collaborate together. So for the first part, I show you the demo and how you can see overall of the effect and how you can do it and all the settings that go with it. So for this part, I'm going to show you the real life footage because they always say everything always looks good in cube and sphere. So we are doing this with cube and sphere, so we are going for the real life footage this time. Okay, this is the scene of the demo that I showed you right here. You can see this is the demo. So there are a lot of things that make this scene look so good, like you see. So the first one to talk about is the shadow. I know that a lot of tutorials show this about the shadow catcher and all stuffs like that, but it is better also for you to separate the shadow from all the passes as usual. So when you look at this is the rendered. You can see that we have the background, but the background is not visible in this scene, as you may see, because what I did was to separate it from the shadow. You can see this is the shadow pass. And for this shadow pass also, we also have some passes that I also enabled in this shadow pass, which is the mist and the ambient occlusion. So for some reason, Blender shadow always looks scattered, very much scattered, and it's not settled at all. So I don't really like using it to shadow, because in this scene, what I did was not to use the shadow that Blender produced for us as the shadow. You can see the ground, but instead I used something different. I used the ambient occlusion. So let me show you the ambient occlusion part for this. This is the ambient occlusion. Directly, if you do this with Blender, it's also scattered, but there's something very much cool you can do with it. You can denoise it, and it really look good when you denoise it. Okay, so let me show you how you can set up this. Okay, so what I will do now is to open a new Blender scene, then to show you how to do that. Okay, now I've opened the new Blender scene. As you can see that everything looks like normal. Okay, so first thing I want to do now is to separate the box and also the ground. So now we have this as the box. So they just give it a collection and call it box, because we want to line up everything like properly, and also this box. Okay, now let's add a ground for this. Oops, let me just center this back. So I will just scale it up like so. All right, so I'm going to drag this up. Okay, now the camera is set, so let me just place the camera like this. Okay, now let's go to the render. This is cycles. Turn on every other thing. Okay, so now we already have this scene. So we need to place this as the ground because we want to use it as the floor. Okay, so I'm going to add a new collection. Okay, now we have the ground. So for this ground, I'm going to use this as a shadow catcher. Okay, now we're seeing the shadow right here, but we don't really want the shadow to be in that position. So you can tweak the light if you don't want in that position, but that's not the case. Okay, we don't want to render this scene like just to render it straight away. Okay, so I want to just click on this, the ground. So come here, object data settings right there, shading, sorry, visibility, then mask. You can see the shadow catcher right there. Okay, now we are seeing the shadow. Okay, so what we want to do now is to go here, down here to the fin, then makes this a transparency. Okay, just to render a transparent background. Okay, now click on this. Now what to do is to click here. Now you can add new or copy these settings. So either of the two will work. Okay, I click on add new. So for the ground here is there, and for this box, which is the seeds collection, I'm going to use this as an hold out. You can see what that does. Okay, now in this collection, we can just rename ground, which is the render layer as the ground, and this box we are having this box, and you can see that this shadow is also visible in this scene. So what we want to do now, we don't want to see the shadow, so click on this ground, then set that as hold out and also indicator only. So we want to set it as indicator only as well as hold out. Okay, now let's render our scene. Okay, this is done rendering, and let's check the compositing to see what we have. Alright, so this is, let's use notes. Let me just clamp this. Okay, so now we have to duplicate this and change it to the ground. You can see that when you hold shift then control and click, you can view it when you turn on the own regular add-on. So you can view it shift control then click. You can view that shift control click. It's very faster and much easier than just connecting the node yourself. You can see that. Okay, now we have the shadow and we have the box. So it's very good to separate this like you want to do it, because you have more flexibility and you can manipulate this object itself in the composite. I will show you what I mean just a bit. Okay, now let's composite this like a normal, back to the normal section. So add alpha over. Now we plug this to be the top and the shadow to be the bottom. If you do this, this is what we have. You can see that this is not correct. We want this from the top and we want it on the bottom. So you have to swipe it back like this. Now you have it. So if you want to add maybe just the background to this, you can also duplicate this instead of adding another one and put this at the bottom like this, and you have something like this. You can see how this looks, and you can manipulate this yourself and you can do a lot with this. Okay guys, now that everything set like this, now you can manipulate this shadow to see the value you get. You can see that if you don't like how harsh the shadow is, you can reduce the shadow. So let me show you how to do that. So when we try to reduce it from here, like you see, instead of the shadow reducing, what happens is the one on the top is reducing, like you see right there. So to reduce the shadow, we need to flip this back, like you see, and when you flip this, now you can see that the shadow is reducing, but this object on the top is not visible. This is not exactly what we want. So to make sure we fix this, you have to take this, you can take the file to the factor. It doesn't work that way. So instead we take the image, which is the object, to the top, then swipe it back to the down like so. You can see how I cross it. So now you have the visibility over the shadow. Now you can manipulate the shadow the way you want. Okay, now you can see that you can have more shadow on it and you can reduce the shadow the way you like. You can see now. Okay, this is all about compositing, manipulating in the composite, what you can do in the render, because you might not want the shadow to be more harsh like that in the scene, or the VFX you are doing, the shadow is not that harsh depending on the shots you are working on. So you need to have control over your shadow. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you is the ambient occlusion. So let's see what we can do with the ambient occlusion. So we can find the ambient occlusion in the passes here. So for this, you can see the object ambient occlusion, because we already separate it. Now we have the object ambient occlusion and the ground ambient occlusion. So let me show you this. You can see this is the ambient occlusion for this box, and for the ground also, this is the ambient occlusion for the ground. So what I can do now is to turn on the ambient occlusion for the boat. Okay, now let's give it another render so to see exactly what we got. Okay guys, now that the render is done, so let's see what we can do with this pass in the compositing. So when you look at this, now we see that we have another pass which is AO, and it means ambient occlusion. So let's click shift and control and click to see the passes one by one. You can see what this is, and you can see this in the shadow as well. Alright, so I normally use this one for soft shadow like this one showed you here. because this is not like a real shadow, just like a soft shadow. So it's like ambient occlusion. This is ambient occlusion pass. You can see there. It's not like the shadow you see here. It's not like this. Okay, so what I want to show you now how to composite this ambient occlusion, and it's really cool. You can do a lot of cool effect with this ambient occlusion. I'm going to show you a few of them in a second. Okay, so let's start with this top one, and what I want to do now is to composite this. So to do this, let's press Shift A, go to the color, then add a mix, put that somewhere here. So plug this mix here on the bottom like this. So let's view this. You can see what we have. You can see that we are not having any shading in this part. You can see it almost looks white. So if you want to have more shade in this, press Shift A, go to the converter. Now add a color ramp. Put it here before the mix. So now you can crank the color ramp. You can see that as we crank the color ramp, we started having more shading in the dark area. You can see the dark area is from the ground, because that is where the light source comes from on the top, and we're supposed to have darker area from the bottom like the normal one. Okay, so now let's composite this. So we have to mix this up here. So let's drag this here, then to the top, and this to the bottom like so. Then we can view everything right here. So we don't need this. Okay, now you can see what is going on. Alright, so now we can set this the way we want. You can see we have linear, we like these lines, everything constantly. So you can see how you can adjust these settings depending on your what you want. You can see that we have the ability to manipulate this in render. Okay, so I want to show you something really quick. Something cool you can do with this. So let me just go and add some blood texture to this. Don't know which one will work better, but let me just add anyone right here. Okay, this is the blood texture I'm adding to this. You can see, let me show you what I can do with this blood texture. Okay, now let me just press Shift A, add a mix, plug this mix to the bottom and view it. Okay, for some reason this is not scaled up. You can see the size, so let's fix the size first. So let's go to filter, then scale or distort. Distort. So let's get something called scale node, then put it here. So we also change this to the render size of our video. Okay, you can see now. So now with the mix, so when you just take this with the image itself, then plug it here and view it, you can see what we have. So when you change this mix to multiply, you can see what we are getting. That we have this blood split with the multiply effect on this. So with this effect, now we can drag this back to the image instead of having the image there already. So now we have this coming from this factor here to the image. Okay, now if you view everything like here, we are seeing that we are not getting this effect anymore. So the reason behind this is because of this. So what we can do now is to drag this here. Okay, now that we have done like this, now we have crossed this. So what we do now is to just drag this factor here to the factor here of this mix. Now we have our blood split on the object. And the cool thing about this is that this color ramp of this AO, which is the ambient occlusion, is over on top of this blood split. So when you just check it like this, you can see what is going on, and when you plug it, you just control what we got here. You can see, and you don't have this much of flexibility if you don't do these passes, because that is how you get them right. And of course, if you want this blood split on the floor also, you can just, what you can do right now is very simple, just drag this to the top here and you have everything correct on this blood split. Okay, so now you can manipulate this and give it some colors, and you can just tweak it, do color around to this, do anything you like. So let me just Shift A, let me just add color node, not this. Use color balance. Okay, yes, color balance node. Now you can tweak this. You can see we have more red. You can see you have flexibility over this floor and on this also. You can just take this also, duplicate it and put it here. This is a better way of doing compositing because you have more flexibility on the separate object. So you can just do this, add more color. You can see, tweak it the way you like. So this is how you do compositing. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video.